everyone. Thank you for coming this evening. We have the honor this evening to have Nayaswami's Ananda and Kirtani visiting us from Ananda, Assisi. So they will be sharing in our celebration this evening. So first of all, happy Swamiji's birthday to everyone. We had a lovely celebration at the village a couple of nights ago, and it's just a joy to be back to celebrate together. So let's take a moment and close your eyes if you're comfortable. Gently roll the shoulders back. See if you can feel the heart open gently. Feel for Swamiji's presence. He's with us. You know, we wouldn't be here today if he hadn't said yes how many years ago. Yes to being a disciple, yes to starting a work based on Yogananda's principle of World Brotherhood colonies, and for having the courage to do that. And then for all of us, also for having the courage and for keeping our hearts open. So let's offer this prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswar, and Paramahansa Yogananda, saints of all religions, we lay the flowers of our devotion gently at thy feet. Divine Mother, bless us this evening as we celebrate Swami Kriyananda's birthday. Beloved Swamiji, we offer you our gratitude for your divine friendship, for your divine guidance. Be with us always. We are thine. Be thou ours. Om. Peace. Amen. Please be seated. So often, many of you know, as we have these evenings, we can have elaborate evenings with many different speakers and lots going on. And folks kept asking us as we were driving back, where's the schedule for the evening? Where's the schedule? And we're like, there's no program. We have a thought, of course, how the evening will flow, but it'll be really simple. Of course, with Ananda and Kirtani, we'll be sharing stories about Swamiji, Ananda, Assisi. We have some wonderful music. But really, this is just a chance just to be with Swami. We'll have an opportunity to come up and make an offering, but we'll make sure that we end in time to celebrate together with birthday cake out in Clarity Room. But thank you all for coming. Let's just go deep. Let's enjoy this time with Swami Kriyananda. Again, we're here because he said yes. And so thank you all for saying yes, for being a part of this work. As you know, one of our theme songs is Many Hands Make a Miracle. And none of this, even this evening, would be happening if it wasn't for many hands. So it's a joy to be back. It's a joy to be celebrating together. And God bless you all on this sacred time. I know it's just a day or two later, but we can feel for his presence ever more deeply. He's always with us, guiding us. So
I'm going to take a brief moment and ask the question, is anybody else warm in here? Could we get the HVAC system adjusted somehow? That would be great. Thank you so much. Yeah, I know we can never tell whether it's the lights or just menopause or whatever the heck it is. I came in this evening, and Michelle and Marjorie were in the kitchen. Just so much laughter, so much light, so much divine friendship and joy filling the room as they were prepping for all of us to be together. And then we went into Clarity Room, and there was more energy and more joy. Stacy and Surendra and others just lighting up the room with this sense of divine friendship and kindness and freshness and lightness of character. And we came in here, and the choir is singing, and David is waving for Ananda and Kirtani to come up. And just everywhere you turn, there's just this sense of freedom and kindness and lightness and joy. And it's in spite of the fact that everybody here Everybody on this planet struggles with things. We're all, at a human level, we're all facing limitation and challenge. And if it's not for ourselves, it's for our families, our friends. There's always, the world, gives us ample opportunity and invitation to become self-involved. And it's in joy, it's in the presence of God, it's in freedom that we rise above that and rise past that. And we were down at the village, as you all know, for the last week. First for the Center Leaders Retreat and then for the Kriyananda Retreat. And, throughout the entire time, that's exactly what we found everywhere there. And it's the hallmark. It's the hallmark of sanctity. It's a hallmark of sainthood. And by extension, it was also the hallmark of Swami Kriyananda and his life. He said, and I ponder these things often, I know many of you do too, these sayings, these little moments of thought. I often ponder them for decades. And Swami years ago said, I just never let anything affect my consciousness. And I thought, that's good, that's great. He just doesn't let anything bother him, doesn't let anything, but it was way more than that. The more I think about it, the more I realize it's way, way more than that. He radiated a bubble of joy. He radiated this sense of God's presence. He just lived in God's presence and radiated kindness, radiated joy to everything. And that's what he wouldn't let go of. That's what he refused to put down no matter what happened. And I just see it growing in our family. I see it growing here in our Sangha. And I just want to say thank you all for picking up the light that Swamiji brought from our masters. It was Master's hallmark too. And carrying it forward into the moments of our lives and the moments of everything God puts in front of us. So this evening is a celebration, and as Gangamata said, I was talking with a man the other day, and he said, I could never do Ananda, it's an organized religion. And I thought, no, it's a disorganized religion. Well, this evening is a disorganized evening. It has some themes, it has some music. It has a chance for offering, as Gangamata said. It has a chance for a little bit of meditation and stuff, but mostly it just has a chance for us to enjoy being together in the light of God's and in Swami's presence. So we'll do a little chanting and a brief meditation, and we'll take it from there. Okay, thank you. Let's feel Swami singing it through us to Master, to God, and feel the joy that he felt in his self-offering and the love that he held for God, for Master, and by extension for each one of us and for the God within us. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, be thou mine, be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, be thou mine, be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. I am thine, I am thine. Swami, one of his birthdays, somebody said, Swamiji, I just don't have anything to give. I'm just completely at my wit's end at every level. He said, the only thing I know to do is I will do Kriya for you. And Swami just smiled so sweetly and he said, that's the most beautiful gift you could possibly give. So let's do a few Kriyas for Swamiji here as we sit here together and feel him taking that energy, taking that self-offering and radiating it out into the world in blessing. And he used that gift to channel light into this world, over 400 different ways. And to pick up different qualities of God's consciousness, of Master's consciousness, and insert that ray of light into that aspect of our lives, into that aspect of this world. And if we had more time this evening, maybe a lot more time, we'd do all 450 pieces. But we're a little cramped, so we're going to do about 4 pieces. And these are, I don't want to say they're more meaningful than any of the other pieces that he wrote, but they are extraordinarily meaningful. And if we listen and draw on the magic that the choir carries in attunement with this music and attunement with the light of God through our masters and Swamiji, we can all feel a tremendous upliftment. So David, if you would welcome the choir and take the next steps with us.
We'd like to begin with 2 songs composed by Swami Kriyananda, God's Call Within and I Live Without Fear.
Free
this next song is Swami's last song, which is the melody is based on George Bizet's famous duo from the Pearlfishers, with Swami's lyrics added. And then after that, we'll hear Love is a Magician.
Yes, it's she, the Divine Mother, ruler of every heart's desire. Love more ancient, bliss eternal, may our hearts soon be merged in thee. Yes, it's she, the Divine Mother, she who made the universe. Yes, it's she, the Divine Mother, ruler of every heart's desire. Love more ancient, bliss eternal, may our hearts soon be merged in thee. Love more ancient, bliss eternal, may our hearts soon be merged in thee. You want that? There we go. Yeah. I don't need it. Love is all I know, sun rays on the snow of a winter long, in darkness without song. Oh, my heart's afire, burning all desire, only you remain, and life again. Love is all I know, sun rays on the snow of a winter long, in darkness without song. Oh, my heart's afire, burning all desire, only you remain, and life again. Too long I did stray, flung lifetimes away, imagined you did not care. I know now your smile was mine all the while. I listened and love was there. I can't breathe for love. All the stars above call to me, come home. Life's waves all end in foam. Only love can heal all the pain I feel. What a fool was I to turn away.
It's a particular blessing to have Ananda and Kirtani here for many reasons. One is just the light they bring from who they are, and the endless years of self-offering and meditation and prayer and devotion that they've brought into their lives and put through their lives. In addition, they are the spiritual directors, as was mentioned, for Ananda Assisi, which sounds nice and tiny and compact and manageable, except that Ananda Assisi serves all of Europe and the Eastern Bloc countries and anybody else they can possibly find. If they could do outreach to the moon, I'm sure they'd have it in a meditation group there. They just serve endlessly, and any one of their services is likely to be translated as likely as not into 3 or 4 or 5 different languages at the same time. And they're trying to, they spend their lives, and they've been now 28 years in the Assisi community, in this service, and really helped it bootstrap itself up from a very timid and small and underfunded and et cetera center into something that's really thriving. And they're building their second temple now, and just endless joy and service. But because of that service that they offered, they had the privilege, because of the responsibility they shouldered, they had the privilege to spend endless weeks and months across the nearly 30 years in the presence of Swamiji, drawing on his support, drawing on his wisdom, drawing on his guidance, and sharing friendship with him. And so as we celebrate his life tonight, they are great emissaries for, if we could crack into the warehouse, the storehouse of it, the number of stories they could tell would take, I don't know, maybe 27, 28, 29 years. But they're going to drop in if they can find the place. Often when you have a lot inside, it's hard to know where to start or what to drop in. But just share a little bit of their experience of what it was like serving with him across those years. So thank you both for being here and joining us and bringing this to our Sangha.
Thank you, Daiva. Thank you, Gagamata. In fact, it isn't easy to know what exactly to share. And we've been sharing over the last week at Ananda Village. And it was a joy to be with all of the devotees there who gathered from all over the world. And it's as great a joy for us to be again with you in Laurelwood and in Portland, even though it's been almost 28 years since we were here. And the last time, we come regularly because the colony leaders gatherings, as you know, happen every year. And it simply has always been the case that we would land in San Francisco, see my family go to the village, and then we'd fly to Seattle and be with Anand's family and the Seattle community or the farm, and we always flew over Portland and Laurelwood. The last time we were here, last year, we said, next year we are going to make it absolutely to Laurelwood and Portland, in part to be able to connect with all of you personally and to have some time with Daiva and Gangamata, but also to be able to see the incredible way that Portland and Laurelwood have grown through many challenges, and to be able to make that connection personally so that we could take back with us to Ananda Assisi the energy and the magnetism of our spiritual family here. So we will do that. We will take you back with us. I'm simply reminded that Swamiji, in all of his travels, as you know, he never let the fact that he was aging and his body was giving him more and more problems, he never allowed that to cut into his traveling and connecting with all of us everywhere. And I don't know if everyone in this room had a chance to connect with Swamiji before he left his body, but there are many ways, and if you didn't, that you can. You know, Swamiji is, so many people have said that since he left his body in 2013, he has been somehow more present and more active in my life. You know, people have said that it seems like leaving his body eliminated a limitation to what he is able to do, because now he's more omnipresent and more able to really touch each one of our lives. So through this wonderful music, and thank you for the duets, the solos, the music of your choir is just absolutely exquisite. And I always wonder if I'm the one who's going to have to speak first after listening, if I'm going to be trying to speak through tears, because it moves me so deeply. It's one of the ways that Swamiji has touched so many of us. And I wanted to share a little bit about, because of Europe and Assisi and the European work, a little bit about how that came about. Many of you may know that Swamiji talked with Master when he was with him about the letters he was getting from people in Germany, from people in Europe, and how much he felt they were ready for and needed what Master's teachings had to offer. He said, especially after the wars that they've been through. And Master said, perhaps I will send you there. And in his lifetime, Master did not send Swami to Europe, but at some point, Swamiji again was receiving from devotees, especially in Italy and in Germany and in Holland, a plea to please, can't we have something of Ananda in Europe? It's difficult for us to travel to America, because at that time especially, it wasn't the euro, it was 5 or 8 or 9 different currencies, and none of them were very strong. And so it made it difficult for people to come to America to be able to connect with Ananda and with Swamiji. And so he finally was invited to an event in Findhorn, and he decided to take a few of us with him. I got to go because of my language skills with Spanish and German. And it was wonderful to see Swamiji after the Findhorn event. We went to Holland, to Germany, to Austria, to Italy. And in every one of those countries, Swamiji really could feel the culture, the language. he usually spoke in English and was translated, but he could say a few words in German, so he would speak those words, and the Germans just, their hearts just melted to have Swami trying to speak their language. And all through, Swami mostly was speaking in English and being translated. So I want to share a story about what happened in Italy. When he got to Italy, Swamiji had both Spanish and French, which are Romance languages and close to Italian. So he could understand a lot, but he still started speaking in this big public lecture in English, and he was being translated. And as you know, if you heard Swami speak publicly, or if you have followed and listened to other talks of his, Swamiji had a great sense of humor. He loved to make people laugh because he knew that that helped them to be more in their heart, to be relaxed, to be open to hearing the great wisdom that he had to share. So what he noticed was that when he was speaking in English and being translated into Italian, those who understood English understood when he shared a joke, and they immediately laughed. And then the translation happened, nothing. And he thought, well, something is not getting translated. And at some point, halfway through the lecture, he just said to himself, he said to the public, I'm going to try speaking in Italian. And from that moment on, he taught in Italian. So at the end of the lecture, when people had come up to talk with him and to talk with us, and most people had left, I came up to Swamiji and I said, Swamiji, I could understand about 80% of your Italian. It was wonderful. And he said, that's because it was about 80% Spanish. And of course, the Italians are always a very generous people. And, they could understand well enough, and they appreciated the fact that he was making that effort. So at the end of that pilgrimage, the question came up of, if Ananda is going to do something in Europe, where should that be? And he could feel so strongly the heart, the devotion, the openness of the Italian people for the teachings that he was sharing. And he decided that that was where it should happen. And a woman, a young mother, and her husband offered the family villa for Ananda to come to in northern Italy and begin the work there. And that's where it began. It was near Lake Como. At that time, it was Ramandiana, Jyotish, and Devi, and a few other people who started. It was not an easy time. They didn't have a lot of money. Luckily, the villa was given for their use. But when winter came along and they didn't really have the money to heat the villa, they were doing most of their meetings under the covers of their piuminos and duvets and their, the feather beds, because it was so cold and they couldn't afford to heat it. They also could not afford to eat really well. And so bread and pasta tended to be the diet. And when I arrived in Italy, Swamiji invited others of us to come over. Everyone who I had known that had been quite slim when they came had put on weight, because bread and pasta is not something that you stay very slim with. In that time, Swamiji, he left to come back to America, and there were two situations where he gave advice about how to work with the Europeans. One happened soon after he left. Actually, I'll start with the one that as he was leaving. it was people, we were a little nervous about the fact that Swamiji wasn't going to be there anymore. And his advice to us was, as you work together and serve together, and this is something that is true for any work of Ananda's that is happening, Swamiji said, he said, meditate together. It's S's in Italian, so I always remember which ones they are. Meditate together, serve together, and have fun together. And the first two, of course, are of course, if you're serving the work, then you're going to have a spiritual life and meditate together. You're going to serve that work together. The third one was a little bit of a surprise, but Swamiji, he knows that the spiritual path is not a drag. It's not a weight. It's not something that we should feel heavy about. And so in order to really give the image of the joy that he wanted us to share with people, he told us to have fun together. And that's true for all of us. We want to meditate together, go deep, and have always deepening spiritual life, serve together because it's such a great joy to serve together, and because Master wants to come through each one of us in order to manifest the truth, the light, and joy on this planet. And having fun together is how we help others to see what it means to be together as a spiritual family. The other thing that Swamiji said was, let's see, it had to do with the differences in culture that we were serving. You know, here we're all Americans, and basically we share a culture. There are a lot of different aspects to American culture. But in Europe, we had people coming from England, from the northern countries, from Germany, from Italy. And at some point when I think we were talking with Swami on the phone, and we'd been having some difficulties with schedule. What time do we meditate in the morning? You know, the Germans are awake and ready early in the morning. They want to meditate early. The Italians are much more relaxed, and they're much more, they start work at maybe 9:30 or 10 o'clock in the morning. And so, they wouldn't want to meditate so early. The food, Germans, Americans are much more into, at that time, especially we're talking about 28 years ago, the Italians were really into their pasta. They couldn't imagine a day without eating pasta. And the Germans and Americans were really into more healthy food and having a diet that was very balanced. And so we were saying to Swamiji, what do we do? What do we do about the fact that, some of them want this kind of diet and meals at this time? The Italians eat dinner at 8 or 8:30 in the evening, and the Americans and Germans eat more like at 5:30 or 6 in the evening. How can we harmonize these different needs? And Swamiji just took it to a whole nother level. And he said, just feed, nurture their souls, and everything else will find its place. The most important thing that we had to do was to really share the teachings, feed their souls, know that if we touched them at that level, the other things could always be resolved, and the harmony would come together. I want to just share another story, which is not necessarily connected with this, but it was so meaningful to me of what Swami's life was. And some of you have heard this story, I think, because I have shared it before. When we ended up in Assisi, in Italy. And Swamiji, as you know, would be in America, and then he would be in Europe, and then he would be in India. And during the later years of his life, he always had, and Miriam is very well aware of this, the physical challenges of his body. And at one point, Ananda and I, we came to his house in Ananda, Assisi, when he had just fallen. And my memory is that we were realizing we needed to take him to the hospital because he had hit his head, and we wanted to be sure that he was okay. But we came in, and he was sitting at his table, not actually having breakfast. He asked Anand if he would go and make a fresh orange juice for him. And I started to say, Swamiji, at times like this, I asked Divine Mother, and he didn't let me get any farther. He knew I was going to say something like, I asked Divine Mother, why does Swami have to suffer in this way? You know, why does this need to happen? He's serving your work. And I didn't get past even the start of saying Divine Mother. And Swami said, don't say anything. This body is Divine Mother's, and she can do with it what she wants to. There was no room in Swami's life for complaining about what happened in his life. He was the best example for all of us of how you arrive at real freedom of soul by accepting that everything that comes is from Divine Mother. And Divine Mother will do what is best for the work, for Swamiji, for each one of us. And especially in that moment, I realized how much that attitude of accepting whatever came to him was the essence of Swami's life. Whatever came to him was from Divine Mother, from Master. And even though when Master was alive, he had said to Swamiji, you will find God at the end of your life, Swamiji did not rest on his laurels. You know, he didn't just think, wow, if Master says, I'm going to find God at the end of my life, I can just take it easy. You know, I can just, whatever I want to do. He knew that he didn't want to waste any opportunity that was coming from Master or from Divine Mother to get free. He knew that everything that came in his life, and this is true for all of us, everything that comes to us in our life comes to help us get free, comes to help us get free of limitations, of everything that is an obstacle for us to arrive at that final freedom. And Swamiji, I saw him in his life not let pass by any opportunity to do what God wanted him to do, what Master, what Divine Mother wanted him to do, and not what he, as an individual or ego, wanted, because he knew that if Master's words, you will find God at the end of your life, were to be able to come true, he had to do his part. And his part was doing all that God and Master and Divine Mother presented to him, asked of him, and wanted him to do for his own freedom, and of course, for ours, because that was the other thing that Swamiji always said, that he had come, he was here, and the only things that he wanted were to find God and to help others find God. So I know that he is here with us, that he is always there to guide. As long as we are aware and open in our heart and in our consciousness, he will help us to come to that same freedom at the end of this life. And this is what I wish for all of you, and what Swamiji wants for all of you.
We're going to try to have cake at 8:30, so I'm not going to speak very long because there's a couple other things, very inspiring things we want to do before we have cake. But I wanted just to tell maybe just two brief stories that illustrate how much fun it was to be with Swami and serve with Swami, because we were with him a lot in Europe. And one of the things that happened that didn't seem significant at the time, but has had more impact on me. Swami would often be pretty well planned out about what the next day's events were going to be, especially if it involved us and he needed our help or wanted us to accompany him. And so it had been arranged that I was going to be at his house at 10 o'clock, and that I would drive him to town, or that we would. But I seem to remember that it was, for some reason, it was me. I think Kirtani maybe wasn't available. And so I was ready to do that, and about a half hour before, about 9:30 in the morning, Swami called me and said, "Anand, that which I was going to do in town, one of our other community members just dropped by and gave me that, so I don't need to go." And there was this pause. And then he said, I already had it in my mind to go. And he said, and I don't want to break the will and the intention that I put in place. Why don't you come over anyway and let's go have a cappuccino? Let's go get a cappuccino in town. And I realized, yes, he enjoyed getting a cappuccino, but we could have fixed that at home. He really had that kind of mind where he wanted and tried to really go with intention and go with that which he had put in motion. And so that was just something that touched me. The other thing that I wanted to share that just came into my mind tonight, because David asked me if I would sing this song, and I needed the words because I've never sang it before, so this was a new experience for me, and especially with the guitar. It was so lovely, those guitar chords in a way. I've never heard it done like that. But I also remember the morning after Swami wrote that song. And again, Kirtani and I went, he called us, wanted us to come over. And I don't know if David Miller did this on purpose, but I think David Miller sent some words that he thought could go to that melody. And so I don't know if they were just far enough out of the norm that in some way David ended up pushing Swami to actually write his words, but he wasn't satisfied with them, and so he stayed up till 2 o'clock because these words came to him, the words that we sang tonight, and he was so moved in the morning. He'd obviously been up late. He'd obviously worked hard. He said one of the hardest things about music for him was that sometimes he would just wake up in the middle of the night having dreamt or heard a melody, And so he would write it down, or he'd get up and he would, but then he said, the work comes in putting the words to the melody. And as we know with his oratorio, it's beautiful, beautiful poetry. If you read those words, even without any melody involved, they're just really moving, and they're deep in respect to our teachings. They really, each one of those songs has a deep message. And so in this particular case, he had this beautiful melody, and then he ended up putting those words to it. And so he had us come in. He was very excited and enthusiastic about how much they touched him. And that particular time and another time, I remember he happened to walk by speakers that were playing his Temptation of Christ in the oratorio, and he wept, stopped and he wept. And he said, oh, that is so moving. And he said, sometimes Divine Mother gives me a melody that that touches me to the core. And I always loved that about Swami. I used to think that Swami was a little bit naive, because he would say things like, I've written 400 pieces of music, and I've written 150 books. And I would always think, it's not your place, Swami, to say that. We should be saying that about you and for you. You shouldn't be saying that, because I always thought the audience could misinterpret that. But he kept trying to say to people that nobody really humanly could do that if it wasn't that we had God and the Guru's grace. And he kept trying to help us understand that if we open up, we can be open channels of creativity and of inspiration for others in the world. And he really didn't write them for himself. He wanted to try to inspire other people, and he wanted to try to move them. And he just didn't hear that other aspect that I thought it was very plain was, Swami, be careful when you say that. When you say, I've written 400 pieces. But he really didn't mean it that way. And I've obviously known him personally, there was no ego in that at all. He was totally moved at how something would come to him and how he felt that he was what a great gift that was, that God or the masters gave it to him. Even when he wrote the Gita commentaries, and it's a very inspiring book. But I remember with him that he was so frustrated that he couldn't get his hands on those old notes that he had worked with Master on the Gita commentaries when he was as a monk in the Self-Realization Fellowship. And those were copyrighted and owned by the Self-Realization Fellowship. And so even though he worked with Swami in the desert on them, he didn't have access to them. And he had a dream. And Master said in this dream to Swami, don't forget there's always the skylight. And I thought, what an incredible image, that you can always just open your mind and you will remember and you will receive it and it will come to you. And in fact, Swami said, I sat down and I couldn't believe, I remembered as if I sat in the room with Swami. With Master, I could remember the words he used. I could remember the inflection in his voice. And he said, I remembered almost per word things that Master had said to me. And so Swami sat and wrote that book in 3 weeks, wrote that whole volume of the Gita commentaries in India in 3 weeks. So he was a great and wonderful channel of inspiration, but also he really showed us how. And he showed us how, not as look at me, who I am, he showed us how each one of us can open ourselves and expand in that inspiration, in that joy, in the attunement to God. He was one of those that helped me understand. I grew up in a very traditional Christian atmosphere of the Catholic Church, and I read books or the lives of the saints all my life, and basically they just beat tarnation out of the ego. They felt that the idea was to beat the ego into submission, in fact, beat it into extinction. And Swami said, no, that's not what Master taught. You expand the sense of I into union with Spirit. You never lose that sense of I. It's just simply an experience of expanding into union with Spirit. And even when you're in that oneness with Spirit, it's the sense of I am bliss, and I am joy, and I am ever-existing consciousness. So we really have been gifted. We have a wonderful life on the spiritual path. We have had wonderful examples and guides, and our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to tune into that inspiration, and tune into the attunement of the masters and of Swami's life. And it's not an impossible mission. Thank you.
I'd like to just say thank you both for sharing this evening. If you've enjoyed the sharing and you'd like a little bit more, I have a couple of ideas. One is you can try and tear up their plane tickets. Another is you can come on pilgrimage with us to Spain and Italy in late September, early October, because these two great souls will be leading the pilgrimage with us over there. So
I forgot, and that's a very good point. I'm sorry I did forget, but we have done many conferences in Segovia, for example, which is the hermitage that St. John of the Cross's body is at. It was found years ago in a state of uncorrupt. His body was uncorrupt. He was a wonderful, wonderful saint. We discovered, having taught there many times, and at a certain point, the priest there allowed us to do our programs at the hermitage. And our center leader in Spain discovered some of St. John of the Cross's teachings in English for me, because most everything was in Spanish. And I learned St. John of the Cross actually taught his disciples techniques to see the inner light. There really is no difference when we talk about these saints who wanted to encourage us and show us how to find God. So we have Segovia, we have Avila, we have so many wonderful places to visit. So if it moves you, it would be a joy. We look forward to doing this with them, but also there's wonderful places to visit. If you can do it, it would be nice to see you there also. So.
Thank you. Yes, thank you both. So now we also have another really special treat. We have a very brief video.
Okay, here we go, everybody. Swami, thank you so much for meeting us today.
Peace gave us the mountains, peace gave us the sky.
I am so grateful for an opportunity to be with saintly people like you, and I mean it, who love God and want to know God.
Peace gave us the morning, peace gave us the sun.
I tell you, you don't know what a deep satisfaction it is for me to have seen the fruits of Master's teachings become so lived in people's lives as they are. this life that you're living is a fantastic adventure. Do those things which will make you happy. Do those things which will make you more loving. Develop those attitudes that will lead you toward bliss. You need to learn how to concentrate.
That gather to bless us, mist hands that soothe away pain.
The best thing you could be doing with your lives is living for God and helping other people to live for God and setting an example to people everywhere that yes, it is possible to live together in brotherhood and harmony.
Peace give us our heart's love. Peace give us our smiles. Rays of thy presence within us.
Your highest potential is simply this, to become like Christ, to become like Buddha or Yogananda.
And this, more than anything else, is what will change the world for the better. That is my dream. I hope it's yours.
I feel your blessings and I want to return them. Om, Om, Om. God bless you all.
Ever new joy, 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 joy. Ever new joy, 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 joy. Ever new joy, joy. Joy, 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 ever new joy, 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 ever new joy, joy. Thee, Lord, thee, only thee. I want only 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 thee, Lord.
a beautiful altar. Thank you, everybody, for the music, for the altars, for showing up tonight and celebrating this great life with us together.